Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that little bit of a calming break because now the storm continues to brew as we reach the second game of the day. I'm still your play-by-play caster using a Munchcore Intel here, joined by Vincent. How are you doing, especially after such a great series before?
Yeah, I mean, relatively quick one, the 3-0 going the way of Iona. We saw how, Calamity just kind of put the entirety of their opponents to bed. I mean, that kind of felt like what the takeaway was. It was the Calamity show. But we're going to move on from that first quarterfinal and move it towards our second. That's going to be Siena College going up against Rider University. And this might be a little bit more of an interesting matchup considering we got 4th and 5th seed here as well.
Yeah, it is definitely a lot closer when it comes to the standings, and so that gives us a bit of kind of room to speculate of how these matchups are going to go, and especially with how they're going to work. More than anything, I think it's going to be interesting to see how big of a difference does that kind of ranking really matter, or is that just numbers for us?
Yeah, and if you're just joining us, let's go over exactly how all this works. If you've forgotten, or like I said, just joining us, we're working with a best of 5. That means the first team to get to three maps is the winner. The maps go in the order of control, hybrid, assault, and then escort. Tiebreakers will be control maps as needed. We start over on Lijiang Tower because this is the quarterfinals, and if you want to take a look at the map pool, we have them right here in front of you. We've talked a little bit about them, and we'll continue to talk about them as they come up, but Lijiang Tower, where we get to begin, and in addition to that, the loser of the map prior is going to be picking the map going into the next one. And of course, we couldn't be here without without the fact that this is presented by EGF and Showboat, Showboat Hotel as well. We definitely appreciate them and couldn't be here without them.
Absolutely true. And, look on the bright side, when it comes down to these maps, we know what we're going to be running on first. So these teams have definitely prepared and scrimmed it, but there's a lot of variety when it comes down to hybrid, assault, escort that we may not be able to predict. And now being able to see the kind of record, you can obviously see Mark says they are on a bye week, so they get to relax. It'll actually be Siena versus Rider to figure out who is going up against a team whose number one has the bye week. It's time to rest, maybe go get a cappuccino. They have so much room to figure out what they want to do. Whatever they kind of build from this is going to be that momentum that'll go into their next match.
Yeah, and the storyline here last championship for MAAC was that Maris took out both Siena and Rider in the quarterfinal, then the semifinal. Now they play each other in order for the chance to upset Maris into the grands. That is what they're playing for. It's a huge deal, and let's be realistic. Definitely both these squads want to go into that matchup against Marist and show that they have what it takes to overcome that number 1 seed. That being said, going to have to overcome this quarterfinal before that becomes the case. Both these, I mentioned 4th and 5th seeds. 4 and 3 are Siena College in the division, and Rider 3 and 4. So relatively similar win-loss when it comes down to the MAAC games within the EGFC conference.
Yeah, and I don't think that'll be playing too big of a part, but Rider University, they're good. They've been looking very shining as the series has kind of continued. Although they did have some weak spots, they do have some good veterans and players who are seniors, and so they have a little bit more experience being inside this team. And they're going to be more than ready, especially since I feel they have Ranger, who's an incredibly good leader when it goes to these matches.
Yeah, it definitely helps to have a strong voice in the server, strong leader to bring out the best in the rest of the team. And I don't want to say that will define the victor, but it certainly does help create an opportunity for victories often and with consistency. So definitely we'll be looking out for that leadership factor that you just talked about. And like I said, Lijiang Tower, where we're going to begin once more. You have to imagine, just based on the regular season plus the division standings plus the seeding, that Siena probably have the slight advantage, the slight edge going into this. But I'm really excited to see what Ryder can do. And like you said, having that Ranger tank doing a lot of work on the communication, on the calling, definitely is going to help out.
Yeah, especially on a map like Lijiang Tower, we got to talk about it beforehand and even get some clips and information off of it. Though we didn't really get to go to all 3 points, we still saw what is really favorable, and it's going to be that Ryan, and I think that's going to be the most important factor. You need somebody who can lead you in with full confidence and is willing to outpace your opponent, because if you're able to take 2 steps before they even walk out, well, they're not going to get any chance to get ultimates. They're not going to get a chance to get takes or control over the point, and it's going to be really difficult to kind of fight it out. However, there was one point that we didn't get to see, and I think it was by far the most important one: Gardens.
It's an interesting point you made. I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to say which is the most important, but I definitely think that the fact that we didn't see it definitely raises some questions, makes it interesting if we get to go towards Gardens on this Lijiang go around. But with that being said, it also provides itself for a lot of different strategies. We talked a lot about Pharah for obvious calamity reasons, but that Pharah is very strong. There is something you do tend to see, as well as the Echo is a possibility. But Lijiang Tower is just about to get underway here in our second quarterfinal matchup for the MAAC Overwatch division. This should be good. Once again, we have the 2 teams, 4th and 5th seed Siena and Ryder, coming up against each other.
It's going to be a match to set the pace more than anything. There are those who think control is just a chance for one team to get a free win. You know, sometimes they say it's the weaker team. However, I feel it's whoever is building up that pace, though it sometimes doesn't lead in. We're starting out on the map that I find most important when it comes down to matchups, because of the fact that we get to see on Ryder University, we see 6-man.
We do. We're going to see that normal Winston plus Diva composition, along with the Reaper and the Sombra coming through. Of course, the big difference, I think, here going to be Nifty. I think you have to look towards Nifty. Getting that Coalescence up early, probably going to be the win condition for Ryder.
They are still going to take over that Mega Health Pack, play behind this pillar, and they're going to take their time until Ranger, they find the moment, they immediately walk in, take out the mech, and poor Ace is now hacked, going to be open to Sagi's own damage. However, they push forward. They're not scared of taking the commitment as they take out Ranger's own mech and find out the monkey. However, look at that. They don't pay attention to the Reaper and immediately take out not only the Lucio, but the Reinhardt. Now this control onto the point. Wait, the visor built so quick! Kilo G just has so much damage right now. It's so lucky that Rangers able to build up their mech to build some form of defense. However, they lose the point and they lose their Reaper, meaning that they just have to reset and quite possibly go a little faster.
Yeah, I'm not sure how Captain Kill got that so quickly, but it was very impressive, and you could see it's forced some adjustments from Ryder. I talked about how the Coalescence could be a win condition, but also the fact that we saw Ryder pick up 2 early picks off the back of hacks and not be able to close out the overall fight really does bode well for Siena. Now they have that ult advantage pushing forward.
They have a beautiful wall, though the Mei Sagi actually does a really massive play, stops them from being able to immediately melt them down. Now they're going to wait this out. However, they don't have too many resources. They have to use that sound barrier to walk in with the wall. They're popping
Another
out
visor?
3 ultimates plus the bomb. That visor is built up so quickly, but it's not necessarily needed, as we see the boop helps to kill the Mei. And, well, Ryder University, they lose control.
I need a cap and kill cam right here, right now. You got to watch this guy because he is ridiculous. I don't even understand how you can find so much success so quickly on the Soldier. But regardless, it's giving Siena so much momentum here. 67% in ticking, and Ryder used a lot of their ults already.
They're walking out with one of their own. They don't tend to charge, but look at that. The damage was too great, as Ace isn't going to be able to survive. Now, with this amount of confidence, they are going to be walking forward, cleaning it up at 82, 84 roughly percent. And luckily, they didn't have to commit too much.
I mean, they did commit what they had, and yeah, Keys does have a Deadeye and Soggy coming up close to a Blizzard, but if Siena engage quickly, they can take advantage of this Earth Shatter that is really not going to have a lot to work against it. That being said, as long as that poke continues to happen and Soggy gets up the DPS ultimate, then things now become, I think, a little bit more difficult. Ryder missing their opportunity to go in for free.
Ryder are still taking their time. They're really putting an emphasis onto this Mei wall. As much as I like it, your opponents walk in, you don't even manage to force them out while they set up the high noon. You have your own window to help pump in that damage, but the immortality will keep them up for a little bit longer. Eventually, you are going to be able to punish them and force out the sound barrier with your own Blizzard. So, you know, all's well ends well.
Yeah, pretty good trade. Sound barrier for the Blizzard. You also have some ults still to work with. And I said Ryder missed their opportunity. Of course, I meant Siena missed their opportunity there. Ace not even utilizing that Earth Shatter as something that I would have liked to see being thrown in there already. That being said, they now have still the ults that we talked about before to work with, as well as the Ant Matrix. So this has to be it, though.
You see Ryder, they're taking their time, they are getting set up, they throw the bomb, the moment of light, wait, a 3K fire strike! You're supposed to eat that demon, you're not supposed to let that happen, because now look, as we see Siena pushing forward, not much you can do against a situation like that.
Yeah, and well, when you're in such a close quarters area, it really is difficult. Nice kill there on the back end, too. That's a fantastic stagger. Siena might actually have the win off the back of this. It is going to be close, though. I think Ryder should be able to get the touch. Yeah, the Diva going to be able to get on. And Ryder have a couple of ults to work with here.
The Shatter misses out just barely, and look at that, Grizzly's able to come back in and look for a big slam! And the sound barrier helping against the remech damage. Wouldn't have killed, but you don't want that taking any sliver of your health. Bring it back just as close as before, but Siena, they're coming back with 2 ultimates.
Yeah, Ryder used their couple of ultimates to great effect, but now they have those DPS ults too, and Siena in a bit of a rough spot. They have swapped over, and Captain Kill's gone down early.
Look at this, they did get the teleporter. Unfortunately, they are being called out as Ryder. They popped everything at the last second to help confirm the kills. Ryder University out of their back pocket. They're going to be able to take the first point and set the pace for the rest of the map.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the goal was, right? Set the pace, set the win conditions, and Ryder, well, they were able to do that very well. I think the key for me was that, well, Siena, they had such an early lead on the point, on the objective, courtesy of Captain Kill OG, who had such quick tactical visors. They wasted a lot of time getting back into that position. They lost the fight, they waited a little too long, let Ryder engage on them without utilizing any of their ultimates, and that's where Siena started to fall behind. So as we adjust, it's going to be Ranger going over to the off tank, and he's going to go for the Zarya. So an interesting dynamic here now.
Yeah, poor Siena, they get there a little late, so they had to use the immortality to keep up Ace. Unfortunately, it's not going to work. So, well, Ryder University having the damage and, well, having the heroes to match it. Start pushing in. They really just want to find any staggers that they can, and it seems that Nourishment is going to be helping provide it for them, especially that sweet little mech from Sethtree.
Nicely done, nicely pushed, and yeah, if you lose your immortality early, you're in a bit of a tough spot. So Ryder, all they had to do was throw their immortality down a little bit afterward, and now even have the advantage of the Ant Matrix, and they've got to put that out early on.
It's not going to be getting too much value, at least when it comes down to damage. It does help kill too, but the better part is that the time that it costs Siena to just stay out and wait is not looking good. They're not a full unit, but they do manage to take out Keys, who has the wall. That's a big ultimate that could have helped them. So Siena, finding this prime opportunity, are going to start taking the point directly to Ryder. But Grizzly, with this shatter, could quite possibly shut this down, so they have to take their time. They've got to set for their condition as they start to push forward. The window goes a little bit too far. The shatter not going to be able to land. CJ is going to be using that Riptire. Managing to find 4! Stopping it before the grab could get value.
What a ridiculous turn of events. The Riptire coming huge for CJ Paul, and it's now going to be a situation for Ryder where they invested pretty heavily, but they didn't get much out of it, and they have to rethink, readjust, and realistically, we're going to shift our eyes to Seth3, who's coming up on that Earth Shatter. Really needs to be the tide turner if Siena want to win this fight.
Yeah, Keys is still on this Symmetra, so they may look to teleport behind. However, they just pop out the window. There's nothing to really have to worry about, especially when the Shatter Sound Barrier combo just turns aside, runs after you. Unfortunately, you really only killed the Reinhardt, and they have a Sound Barrier of their own to match, giving them a bit more sustain. However, Junkrat, a famous hero known for just breaking every type of armor, is not going to let you leave unscathed.
Yeah, and I said it had to be Seth3. It was Seth3 doing massive work, and now that's about some time. Enough time? I don't know. We've seen Keys adjust once again in towards the Junkrat. No more for the Symmetra. There's nothing to work with for Ryder. They're going to have to win this fight dry.
Dry is basically going to be the name of the game. They don't even want to full commit in just yet, as we see them back up, take their time. Their shield only lasts for so long. This poke is absolutely impressive now that CJ Paul has, well, the Riptire. It's not even going to feel too great. You're glad, though, you found out life. You land a Shatter, and you force this into a weird spot as Soggy gets a 2K with the high noon. The Riptire, well, it walks into the Fire Strike, and it seems that Ryder University take their time, build up their ults. They managed to win that fight.
Yeah, and honestly, a little bit of a whiff from Siena. They had the advantages there. Ryder didn't really have anything to work with, but they played it slow. They waited out the time, and now it's potentially last fight territory, though. Siena, if they get it back, they're going to be taking it all the way. As I say that, Reinhardt's so low, but how does he survive?
It's the immortality, one of the best abilities in the game. We see the bomb go as Keys using this Riptire. Unfortunately, the opponents are so split that you have to just wait your time. You go after Ace, you shut them down, and eventually the Reinhardt follows closely after. Now, Ryder University just needs to make sure that nobody can touch the point. They have theoretically won the fight, but we see the switch over to the Wrecking Ball. They have a possible touch.
That they do. I think they should be able to get on. That's an early immortality being pulled out in the Ant Matrix, too. This is still a fight.
Yep, look at that. The Batsies is going to fall. They don't have that long-term sustain, so the Sound Barrier is committed. Now the Visor, they've got to pay attention. They've just put a shield at it. Nothing you can do when you have something protecting you. And that Zarya, popping out the grab last second, is going to be helping the Junkrat and Wrecking Ball. The D.Va and Junk, last people on the side of Ryder to stay on the point, but they just have to keep control. They need the respawns in their favor when Life is the last person here. Kept the Wrecking Ball up for a little longer. Unfortunately, doesn't have an ability to escape, so he tries to heal for a little longer. Nourishment, not going to be feeling proud of that one in the replay. Once again, Ryder University, they managed to bring this back, and they take the first point of Lijiang Tower.
Yeah, it's sort of the same situation in both Stage 1 and Stage 2 of this map. And that was an early lead for Siena, then, brought back, or I should say, relatively early advantage for Siena, and then brought back by the Ryder side of things, only to be able to close things out relatively easily by the end of the stage. So things looking very good. Map number 1, very solid. for Ryder, I have to say there was a lot to love. What I think I loved the most, though, was definitely the tank line. I thought the tank line had some fantastic momentum once they got rolling, and their synergy was very strong. Don't want to take anything away from the Siena side of things, but Ryder clearly had the advantage in that, in my opinion.
Honestly, I felt it just went down to individuals. As much as I really want to say that there is a difference in ideas like that, so as we bring up the highlights, we can kind of get a sense of what happened to make these plays. I mean, we see CJ managing to punish them for not paying too much attention. Their shield breaks, and they don't have too much room. Look at that. Didn't get the wall, didn't have the DM to shut it down. I think it just went down to really small to big mistakes that ended up shutting down, well, the opponents, while Rioter kind of thrived off it at times.
Well, I really think that everything kind of came down to the decision making. There was some, I want to call it slow decision making from Siena, especially in stage 1 where we were on Gardens, and you know, some hesitation trying to get into the point. So that hesitation, I think, really did make it easier for Ryder to take advantage. And even when you get a little bit fortunate with that Fire Strike combo through the Amplification Matrix to get 3 kills, even that wasn't enough to win them overall the stage. It was just enough to win them a singular fight. So everything working well, though, for Ryder. They were firing on all cylinders, and though ultimately that 2-0 in map 1 doesn't really tell the whole story, if you ask me.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Control is just the first game, and yeah, some people really just need time to re-synergize and rebuild up, especially when you're sitting there in front of, you know, a possible crowd. So there is nothing worse than stage anxiety. I feel you there. So when we get to see hybrid, I think that's the point that truly is going to matter, when we get to see, are they going to be making those changes? Are they learning to adapt fast enough, or is it going to take a little bit longer, especially since we are going to be having some subs Booker in for life? So that's a significant change that could quite possibly mess with the way that they want to engage, at least composition wise.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Siena obviously losing out map 1. We head in towards hybrid next, and they're bringing in Booker. I do wonder what we'll be seeing their role be. We'll have to find out shortly, though. Beyond that, I do think that if we shift our focus towards that hybrid, I wonder if we're going to see the King's Row. Once again, that does seem like the most obvious choice, but you know, no far to think about this time, at least not so far as we have been made aware for either squad or for Siena in their picking. So maybe we'll see something a little different.
Honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised if we see something not King's Row. As much as you want to go in for that brawl, and I definitely feel that this could go either side and either, you know, back and forth. I really think the way that you want to win may be punishing your opponent's own weaknesses. And if playing slow, or at least reacting rather than being proactive against your opponent, is the way to go, maps like Limbani and Iconvolt, they work well with it. You can play the Far, you can play a Junkrat, and if you feel special and you want to go a little spicy, a Torbjorn works.
That it does, especially over a Numbani defense. You know, you could argue the same for Iconvolt defense, but a little less. So either way, I do. There's a lot to sort of think about. It's definitely one of those situations where King's Row is going to be most of the maps we see, but if you see some adjustments, if you see some, one team or another try to go a different direction, I don't think that's a bad idea. That being said, I do think we are going to be seeing King's Row once again. I think I'm just seeing confirmation of that. So Siena have gone that direction, and we saw some Reinzar go through on the likes of Lijiang Tower. And if we were seeing the Reinzaria, you have to imagine Reinzaria is going to be there for King's Row as well. Ryder started that trend, and then Siena, who started on the D.Va, if I'm not mistaken, instantly swapped over to that same Reinzaria composition.
Zarya just had so much pressure against the D.Va. Though I would say D.Va is, you know, meta specific, or at least a lot of people think that she's strong. I think some people underestimate how much value that Zarya can do. If you're not really prepared to go up against it, grab is obviously the bigger point, but it's not the main focus. It's the bubble usage that I find sweeps the control of the map. So I'm entirely excited to see a possible Zarya versus Zarya fight, and the kind of small steps that they take to build grab faster, because it can make a difference in a fight.
There's no doubt about that, and I mean the sheer damage output that we've been talking about, that is the key. Whereas I could argue for a bit of a diva at times, but it does generally speaking have such a higher damage potential that if you feel like you're the better individual as well, I do think that really helps you out in the long run when you're playing that Zarya. But again, two teams very close, two stages on Lijiang Tower that were very close, and now we're gonna have to see if that continues throughout the series. Remember, this is quarterfinals for the MAAC championship, and I mean, we're looking at the closest potential matchup of these quarterfinals that we're going to be casting today. So just for point of reference, we'll be having Quinnipiac and Canisius coming up as well, and that's 7-2 seeding wise. So a little bit further of a duel, but we're starting to get ready for King's Row to take a look at the beautiful streets of London.
Such a very beautiful map. Sometimes you gotta remember just the cinematography that the observers find. Overwatch, getting to look at it so close up, you kind of just remember the lore and the origins of what gets you into the game, and then it easily translates into these players basically fighting each other literally to the death, which is always a fun comparison that I'd like to make. I'm kind of curious to see what types of changes, because you can go with the Zarya, but do you stick with like the MAAC for that? I sometimes see teams really like the Hanzo instead.
Yeah, I think Hanzo can be great. The reason that you want to maybe go for the Hanzo is the pick potential, especially on the offensive side of the field. That's definitely strong, but it also is sort of boom or bust. So if you think about the players that you have on the roster, if they are, or they're on one on the day, you're looking at a great look, a great potential matchup. They're not so great on the day, then you're maybe hopping aboard the struggle bus and going straight forward to a loss. We'll have to see what these teams decide as we head into the map. And Ryder defending. Siena, of course, they got to pick where we headed, and Ryder choose where they start. And you were talking about the MAAC. Well, ask and you shall receive, my friend. We have the MAAC.
Honestly, I'm actually just more surprised we're not seeing with the Zarya, and although that is understandable, Siena looked like if they stick onto this, it has the Junkrat, so Ranger is going to be able to not only eat a possible stuns, it's the hypotheticals. That's why you run the Diva rather than just kind of staying onto that Zarya knowing you're going to get damage. I think you can technically say that, it works better for attack rather than defense, but they are running out with the Junkrat, and they have a Widowmaker for an early peak. Let's see how they try to kind of get an advantage off this, and it'll be dirty if they land it.
Yeah, I mean, especially with CJ Paul going out on that Junkrat, the Diva makes so much sense in hindsight when you think about it for Ryder. So, nonetheless, yeah, underway here, and well, unfortunately, Captain Kill has found no kills just yet, though getting close.
The wall does come out. Unfortunately, it seems to land underneath the Reinhardt rather than behind, so Siena are going to get some more room. They have a lot higher burst potential as we're seeing them melt down the shield of Grizzly. Then they speed in. Both tanks traded in. The next pick is going to help define, but look at that. The first tick is there. CJ Paul building up these rib tires literally as clockwork. Speed is the name of the game as Ranger is going to fall. They try to re-engage in, having some room. However, that second tick has been sacrificed. And, well, they have the high noon on the opposite angle, but it doesn't manage to catch everyone. And, well, the Reinhardt comes back. Grizzly is going to regret ever trying to touch as Siena. They're going to be able to cap the point.
Yeah, and you got to point towards CJ Paul as the real reason that okay. I'll go back to that in a second. But CJ Paul on that Junkrat doing so much work. Now, CJ, I don't know about this one, Nate. Swapping off of the Riptire, going straight to the Bastion. And we're also seeing Soggy swap over onto the Genji. This is very untraditional when you think about it. I don't know that you would typically see this, but the Genji's actually a good pick against the Bastion.
It's also quite interesting seeing the Bastion immediately come out, though the Shatter lands, and it's really just one big distraction as you get the res out. Grizzly is just not having fun this game, and well, the rest of Ryder aren't going to be able to move any closer to stopping that point from moving. Unfortunately, they are going to be caught out, even if Keys manages to get the less sneaky fan the hammer kill.
Yeah, and, well, I think Ryder got caught out by the fact that Siena created utter chaos there with the Bastion swap, and TJ's instantly back to the Junkrat. So they've used that just to win the fight. I don't know if it would have been better just to use the Riptire, but either way, it's been effective, and you got to respect that. Now Grizzly needs to find some success with his Earth Shatter to stop the card.
Trying to use that Shatter against a window is not always the brightest feature. Now they have to touch that point, but the Immortality is not in range to save out Twitch. With that point captured, Siena, they're going to be able to push forward with relative ease. They haven't even had a chance to use ultimates, and this may be frustrating for Ryder, especially when Keys gets staggered so late into that fight.
Yeah, these late swaps have been maybe not questionable, but they just haven't had a chance to come to fruition yet because Siena has just pushed so aggressively, has found so much success, and they might just continue to find that here, but they're working against 4 ultimates, and there goes the self-destruct for one.
That poor Mercy didn't know what was coming, especially since the Immortality couldn't save you there. Now, Ryder University, they've stabilized, they feel fine, but they still have that Genji, and they're running out with Blade. I think I'm more used to seeing the Nano Blades come out, but how are we looking with one that can be called dry?
Yeah, that's going to be difficult. That being said, if the Immortality gets forced out, then it can be very effective.
Well, Seth kind of leaves himself out in the open, and Soggy learns why Genji is not meta. Going out did force out the Immortality, but not really able to get too much value off of it. Siena just decides to back up. They're gonna be having 5 ultimates to re-engage, and look, they're even poking without their Reinhardt. The confidence is there as CJ Paul waits for the Reinhardt to come back. They pop out the Valk, and look at this Riptire. It's gonna get set, and quite possibly it's gonna be massive as it goes behind the sound barrier, able to keep them up. Look at that, just immediately disengaging, managing to put some damage onto the mech, not able to kill them out as the Shatter lands through. The visor helps the clean, and Ryder University cannot keep up with the speed, though the Phantom Hammer helps, and they manage to find out the Mercy along with it. Siena still have their main tank swinging away on this point, especially with that window. You have to just barely run out just a touch, but with that boop, it's just not looking good. As Siena, they managed to capture the point with 3 minutes and 32 seconds.
That's not quite the domination that we saw Iona pick up, but that said, it's not bad. Not by any means. And Siena, I do think we got to give them a lot of credit on this one. They did a great job of being aggressive, of playing with the ultimates they had in a good way. They also took Ryder and made them overthink themselves. Ryder made some weird swaps, that Genji one in particular, that does raise some question marks. And, I mean, that was even if you could argue that was like to counter the Bastion, it just really isn't like a direct counter. It's just not an ideal pick. And now we can see Soggy adjusting even further. This time going for the far has Nifty Bean for the Mercy for Ryder as they look to defend a little bit better here.
I like seeing the Soldier come out. I mean, Captain Kill has been I don't want to say good on it, because building up these visors as quick as you are deserves some form of, like, mega compliment. But the English dictionary is very limited right now. So I'm quite interested to see how Ryder are going to attempt to play against it. Look at that Ranger on the Zarya. You get to see what you love today.
And here we go. Siena walking out on a very similar competition that we have seen before. CJ Paul having that Junkrat is big, and Soggy has gone for the same, but CJ Paul is just better.
Doesn't feel too good when your team takes a very nice rotation, but doesn't take a good checking into account, as you are going to be sent back to your spawn room, back to the true hotel of this game. And Rider University, what do? They got caught out mid-rotation.
They did, but that's okay. I mean, they can definitely adjust. And Ranger, this is what I was talking about. That Diva is necessary if you want to eat up all of the incoming bombs from CJ Paul. So Ranger swapping over for the Rider side of things. And now we got to ask the question, right? Okay, where do you go? This is a great adjustment. Great movement and good pathing coming through from Rider. Now they can not only have the high ground, but also just create some space.
We see them take the rotation on the high ground. Ooh, Grizzly gets called out. That Riptire. You have the immortality, though, and they don't know just yet. So as they go in, CJ just kind of tempts them like, oh, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. You never know what's going to be happening. Places down that trap, and now the fight goes on to the point. Unfortunately, Grizzly is not in a place to play as the rest of the team gets hit by the Shatter, and they aren't going to be able to take control on the point.
Yeah, Ryder getting demolished there that time. It was a really strong positioning of the Immortality field. Don't get me wrong, Nifty Bean did a great job, but unfortunately, it just bought so much time for Siena to work out the positioning, work out the win condition, and now Siena lacking maybe on the DPS front of the ultimates, but they have plenty when it comes down to this Ant Matrix.
Both of the Reinhardts, interestingly enough, got traded in, but it's going to matter more that Nifty Beans fell. Though Soggy manages to find out that Lucio, Ryder, they're going to have a bigger opportunity to come back in. I mean, Twitch is still up, so they have the speed boost to swap back onto the point. Soggy has a Riptire. There is a lot of options to retake this, but look at this Siena. They come back in with their Reinhardt, so as they take the rotation, Keys is going to look, no, not wanting to take the high ground, wants to stay with the team, looking to play inside this small room as Soggy throws out the Riptire. The Cyber gets hit very early. That may hurt, but look at that. It doesn't manage to land too hard, but Grizzly lets that Shatter, managing to find out 4. We see the visor coming out at Captain, but it's just not enough, especially with that bomb. You just don't have the comeback as you hope, especially when Keys wants to finish this off with a visor of their own.
Very nicely done, that take by Ryder. Finally, they overcome, and it does take them a lot. I mean, they had to invest 4 out of 6 of the ultimates that they are having available, but, you know, that's sometimes what it takes to overcome. And that Ryder buy themselves a little bit more time to work with. 3 minutes and 20 seconds on the clock. Siena not wanting to give up this angle too early on. And they do have the Riptire as well, so that could be a potential win condition. As CJ Paul, you can see, he's looking for the flank tire.
It doesn't even matter. You get caught out. Well, no, Soggy doesn't really notice, and now you have the Riptire. You're looking for that Baptiste. Poor soul was in mid-air. That was a very cinematic betrayal that I feel. However, Ryder really aren't going to be too phased by it. Their respawns are right around the corner. They finish off the Junkrat, and they have Cart. I mean, it's a good day for them.
Absolutely huge work being done. Siena have to just wait for their Junkrat to get back, and you can see what Ryder are doing because of it. They're just pushing up aggressively, don't want to give space. Now they're sort of forced to, as Siena come back in with the ult advantage. This Earth Shatter is big.
Wait, they just got flung in the air, and the Shatter lands specifically on Grizzly. Though it doesn't help to kill, they have the window, and as much as you want to move forward, Captain does have the visor, though not in a position to use it. Street's face is getting close to the end, and Ryder are feeling happy for it.
Yeah, and with this tire, that's a big problem, I think, for Siena. You don't have to get, you know, 3 kills. You just need to get 1 key kill with the Riptire, and that will give plenty of space for Ryder to continue pushing through this 3rd point. Now, they already have quite a bit of space, but see where that goes. Keys is also in a great position, though. Now with Sugi involved, things have gotten more complicated.
Yeah, Siena really don't feel comfortable playing on this corner. Now Soggy throws out the Riptire. It's very much on the high ground. However, it was way too visible. Now with Captain being angry, using the visor, they have the sound barrier just to fully commit. They're trying to get a pick, but look at this disengagement. Now with a sound barrier of their own, they managed to block the shatter, and they don't even care anymore as they just throw in the bomb. They look to clean this up. Ryder, what is this new energy within you?
They had an answer for everything. They knew what they were going to be doing. Great usage of the ultimates. That's exactly what you want to see. Having a plan and executing perfectly. Ryder. They put down the Ant Matrix. That golden box is right there, but it's maybe stopped there by the Diva Bomb for now.
Look at this, they lose out Paul, who just was in a bad position, though they do mess around, and that payload is incredibly close to being captured. Ryder, they pop the shatter. The junk has so much damage, and there is nothing they can do but stall it out. While Ryder managed to get less of a time bake, they still capped all 3 points, while Siena, they basically got snowballed after second point.
3-3.
Absolutely. Ryder, I mean, they did a great job of putting themselves in a good position. They, sure, didn't have the greatest of first point takes, but once they got past that first point, you just said, they snowballed. They walked straight through, and Siena, they didn't really struggle with anything individually, but it did feel like that Ryder just had a plan for the ultimate rotation and was able to execute it pretty much to perfection. So if Siena were unable to interrupt the plan that Ryder put in place, Ryder just kind of walked through and took it with ease.
It's gonna be more important now to bring back that energy, or at least keep it consistent. Everybody knows when it goes down to overtime, you cannot leave that payload anymore. This is your chance to make it, and you really only have to go up again 3 minutes and 30 seconds, which is not the end of the world. The teams have gone through worse and have managed to capture all 6 points.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, any amount of time means that you have a possibility to pick up the win. We're seeing very much the same composition coming through here from the Siena defense. Ryder, on the other hand, going exactly the same that they have been working with. They do enjoy this legs lock, don't they? He's loving that.
Yep. The wall misses out. That's a little weird, but look at that. They give Soggy the high ground for free, and that immortality is not going to stay up. But a snipe! Ooh, that felt a little bit too personal, and even if Keys manages to find out the tank, they have the Junkrat, they have the Diva, and they are doing the damage to help bring this back.
Yeah, and, well, Ryder up by 1 in this series right now, looking to make that 2. They're doing a really poor job of aggressing onto the point number 1. This was where they struggled with. This is what they struggled with before. And if Siena continues to hold like this, they only have a minute left, remember. They are looking at a potential tied game, especially with so much time on the clock.
We see them moving forward. Grizzly really just wants to start taking control on the point after they take out CJ Paul, and I definitely agree with you, but you gotta be careful. Immortality only lasts for a few more seconds, and you both pop out your window, but the shatter, it's punished as you really only find out Twitch, and well, you're open to the damage. Now we see that Blizzard being committed, really only catching out the Reiner. Everybody else just plays to the side, goes after those open in Siena, and the visor from Keys. Good ultimate, but the sound barrier is going to counteract it for a little bit longer, so they had to use the shatter. It was a big ultimate. It's all or nothing in this fight. Even if the Reinhardt is back, Siena don't want to re-engage all.
No, and there's really no way for Siena to try and re-engage with Ranger, putting so much pressure down the line. And with Soggy having a Riptire ready to go too, that could even further push back the Siena defense. That's it. This is going to come down to the ultimate usage, and well, it's not just Ryder who have the ultimates.
We do see, look at that. Grizzly is going to fall now with this Riptire. They need to make a significant difference. We see the bomb being going as they continue to push forward. Poor Riptire is going to be lasting too long, but that's a beautiful bomb as they push in, managing to find out 2. But the Riptire from CJ managing to trade in 3. Go Grizzly returns into the fight. The focus fire is just not there. You don't really have the units to consider it as a unit. However, with Key still up, look at that, the juice for days. But in the end, even when frozen, my goodness, I bet they can't wait for the change where it doesn't stop you from moving. As Ryder, they at least managed to capture the point, so that this isn't a drawable situation anymore.
No, they do pick up a significant portion of the push there as well early. Now, granted, that is definitely still very winnable for Siena, as 3.5 minutes. I mean, that's just so much time to work with. If you have 3.5 minutes, you can basically just wait for all your ultimates to come online and then press Q at the same time to overwhelm your opponents. That's gonna have to be what Ryder are thinking, and they need to have a plan in place to counteract that, whether that be by playing aggressively, by taking a different position, or something else that we haven't talked about. It's definitely a problem. And as I say that, Siena on the Widowmaker, Captain Kill pulling it back out, just trying to see maybe opening pick, all that kind of good stuff, and it's exactly the same. Ryder, they want to keep this where it's at. They're finding some success, but I will say Siena have been the ones to impress on this composition.
You're right. So, with this Widow early out, they have 3 minutes and 30 seconds. That's enough to build 6 ultimates, right? You know, you could always run the melty strategy if you really feel desperate enough.
Yeah, I mean, you could do pretty much anything you want, but you have to have a plan going in. And right now, Captain Kill, his plan is shoot the heads. Not gonna find anything just yet, though.
Haven't seen a strategy like this in Surefour, and while they do play on the point, they don't really have that consistent damage. Luckily, though, it seems Ranger doesn't have the consistent healing. Loses the MAAC. Now everybody is a free target range as Siena. They gain not only control of where you move, but who lives and who dies. While Nourishment is going to be feeling a little bit embarrassed from that Siena. This is relatively uncontestable, as you're basically going to be open to that window and then the shatter.
Objective A captured. Escort the payload.
Now, in a moment to see how they really want to push out. Look at this, Ryder are playing back. Captain is going to go back solely to switch off a character while that window is popped. The 2K Fire Strike, while the Shatter doesn't find anything, it stops Reinhardt from pushing in. And well, the poor folks at Ryder brought the energy, but it just wasn't enough to help confirm the win. As we see, look at this, Siena, they're gonna start bringing it back, tying up the series 1-1.
A nice attempt by Ryder, but you're right. I mean, ultimately, Siena sort of had that in their back pocket. It felt like the whole time, and it's all sort of off the back of this guy, CJ Paul, doing so much work with the rip tires, with the regular fire. Honestly, you know, these so effective and putting so much pressure as well onto the tank line. Remember when I talked about over on the Legion side of things that I felt like the tank line was was really where Ryder they had a little bit of an advantage. I think that play from CJ and the pressure that was being applied from the damage from Junkrat really made it hard for that tank line to be as bombastic, to be as strong as we were seeing over on Legion.
I agree. Tanks are by far really important when it came down to that map, and the shatters, while blocked, were able to get what they needed. So, going into the next type, that is going to be absolutely a necessity, especially when the DPS and supports are doing their best to kind of make those differences. We got to see how the tanks really put them in their favor, an important role to have. So let's see these highlights, get some moments of just clarity, as well as some of these are just a little bit funny, and then the rest are just incredibly skilled.
Yeah, I mean, this is where we just kind of saw so much of that stagger fight just continually going through, and I gotta be impressed with what Siena were able to pull off on those types of fights. But this was basically why Genji not that great. Instantly pulls out the blade only to get smacked down by everyone. But either way, I think lots of impressive plays, lots of impressive performances, and here's CJ, the one that we were just talking about, just doing so much consistent damage.
It's just so nice, and I gotta say, something that's caught me really off guard is the continued usage of the soldier. I think Cassidy, you know, some people will say has more, at least frequent damage, but Soldier just did absolute work on these matches. Keys continued to shine on it, building up those visors, and at times having the edge against Captain Kill.
Absolutely, I think that that's the case, though Captain Kill has certainly shown that they have a little bit of a wider pool of heroes here, at least initially. That said, we are looking to go towards that Assault game mode next, and, well, it'll be Hanamura. Once again, Ryder have brought us back to the fantastic Hanamura map. I think that we saw some domination there earlier. I think this might be a little bit closer. Already a back and forth duel as it's tied 1-1 in the series. And we head in for what I think is going to be maybe a bit of a different composition choice than we were seeing in that earlier game on Hanamura.
I just don't think Hanamura is one of those maps where, unless your team is completely synergized, you're not going to be able to full hold that point. It's what we saw earlier with Iona, who were just perfectly united. Now with the teams being so equal, it's going to be incredibly hard to hold this. And you know, Siena, they're running out on one shield. If I remember correctly, this is called Pig's Feet. Though I've never seen Roadhog's feet, I've seen his shoes. How do you feel about this composition? Because I definitely feel that, mixed feelings at least, you know, especially Ryder coming out. They don't look like they want a teleporter, but they could have one.
I will say that the teleporter would be a pretty decent look against this composition, maybe. The only problem, of course, is CJ still working the Junkrat. This Junkrat is going to be strong on this first point and on the second point, too. So getting through the choke is the key, and that's going to be the most difficult thing to do as well. So much damage being put through and put down towards this Ryder squad.
They just decide to hard commit. Though holding your shield when the bubble is going to be hurting a little, Siena just move back to the point. They don't want to hard commit or engage. They want to take their time, and look at that. They managed to find a hook onto Sagi. Immortality now out. It manages to help to find the Ana, and they are split. The side of Ryder really don't know where they want to go as Ranger gets split and then a hook taken out as the Reinhardt then goes to try to cover up the body, but you don't have a mercy to res. So now with your team so split like this, a disengage is all that you really have to do, but you are caught with inside Siena's trap of just damage and hero spam.
Yeah, this is a really nice composition right now for Siena. The reason is the pick potential is so strong. Obviously the hook, but you don't just have that. You have the combos there with CJ Paul. You have the combos with the right click plus the flashbang for Captain Kill, as well as nourishment to throw down any biotic grenades. There's just so much to work with, and I didn't even mention Ace utilizing the rock. The accretion so strong if you're playing close range with the Sigma. So Ryder, they're really running into a bit of a buzzsaw here, and as long as they keep backing, Siena are good.
Well, they're going to be backing up automatically. The whole hog, you know, it just, it does work, especially with Ryder popping out that window sideways. This is not the most beneficial way to take that engagement. However, look on the bright side. They go for Sigma instead of a Reinhardt, alright? They're going to be eating up so much damage.
You say that, I don't know if the Sigma's even that much better here. You don't have a whole lot of shield, and look, it's instantaneously broken for Grizzly. Just doesn't even have it anymore.
You are right. It's basically going to be your paper plane when it comes to these picks, but they have the ultimates, but they don't have their Zarya. Sagi walks out with the visor, but can't necessarily peek, especially with them taking their angles. You can go out, and that hook misses, but look at this. Ace has Gravitic Flux, and, well, the rest of your team is going to fall. Although you stop it before you end up losing it very, slammy. Ryder still have very much no ultimates and very little to engage with or find an opening.
doesn't matter that Ace is wasted the Gravitic Flux because there is still ults to work with for Siena. And like I said, their win condition is just keep backing up until they get picks. They go for the hook, they wait it out, utilize all these other abilities that have pick potential, and then back up, do it all again. It's very consistent as long as you're able to hit some of these shots. As we are into a pause. I don't know if we've had a clear drop or what happened, but nonetheless, I really love the Siena composition that we're seeing right now, and Ryder simply have no answer for it. They've tried the Reinzar, they've tried to swap to the Sigma, but like I said before, it's just the Sigma has an even thinner shield, and sure, you do have the ability to take on a bunch of damage utilizing his abilities, but that's a very long cooldown. And that cannot be the only thing that can effectively get all that damage. They need a D.Va right now.
You're absolutely right. That was the main point that I was at least going to bring up. It's just why D.Va is such a good character and is, seen as one of the better meta characters, solely because they can hook you, but then you can fly in, you can DM, they can shoot you with the Junkrat volleys, but you can DM those. It's literally just the same idea of the Sigma, where you have a more limited range, you're more open, and your shield is plastic. That's why you have the Reinhardt. And unfortunately, they're getting caught out in these rotations, meaning that D.Va is absolutely a necessity. As much as I respect the Sigma pick and, the ideas that go behind it, your team can't really push in anymore, and nor can your DPS take the angles that they really want to, especially with the amount of time that they have left. If they want to make any switches, they have to make it now, or else that'll hurt in the long term.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, there was like 1 minute, 8 seconds left when we went into pause time. So the fact that there's really only time for that 1-2 fight situation means that you're right. Swap has to happen immediately, and I think that the problem is that Siena that Ryder, don't actually have an answer. They don't know what to swap to. They don't know what the right thing to do is, and I do think that they should probably go back to that Reinhardt, pick up the D.Va, utilize that to get past the choke point, and hopefully manufacture themselves some sort of pick or something, because just getting onto the point isn't enough. We talked about a Symmetra possibility. I don't think that would have been all that effective, because then you just are dealing with the Junkrat on the point instead of dealing with the Junkrat in the open.
Yeah, you're very much right. The composition thrives off of taking angles, and so the Symmetra teleporter quite possibly could have just given that on a platter, but with the pause over, we get to see how this fight is going to work. The dragon grab strategy is as old as time, and it works perfectly. Nothing to really shut it down. I guess you really just need the 1-2 punch.
Yeah, that was the win condition for Ryder. Didn't realize that they had both of those up just yet. But the thing about Siena, they really don't need to be so grouped up, realistically. That being said, I think this composition gets a little bit weaker on point 2 of this one. And the reason I say that is because you're sort of forced to group up just a little bit. I guess Seth might be able to play up on the point, but here's the whole hog gonna stall things out.
Unfortunately, they do lose Dog in, Captain Kill in the scuffle, and as cool as that looked, you just got booped. So not that great a satisfaction, though you do take out Nifty Beans. They decide they still want to go on top of this high ground. Siena just slow down, they back up. The Flux may come out, but look at that, the High Noon kills too, and the Riptire is going to take out that Sigma. No, it manages to kill beforehand, so poor Hanzo is going to be the target here, or anyone else. I'm done trying to guess who's going to die next. As Ryder, how do they take this engagement with a Sigma? And especially Siena are now switching up.
Yeah, Siena, this makes sense to me. Like I said, I think the Roadhog's in a bit of a weird scenario here. With Seth3 swapping to the Winston, you do have a lot of possibilities. You have a lot of options. You can definitely go down and get right back up to the high ground, but that's a great opening pick. There we go. Ryder might be able to bring this one back.
I agree. Though the anti-main land, look at that high noon managing to take out the Baptiste Booker before anything. Now they have a little bit less healing and control over the point. Siena are entirely split. They really don't know where they want to go, and that first tick is going to be up for sacrifice. Look at that, Keys just barely going to be able to win out in that fight, while the Sigma, the last true person to contest, the Baptiste coming in, managing to give out that immortality. They have the healing now, but they need to start melting them down, and it seems that was the answer with the Flux of Siena. They managed to stop any form of a second tick from even being conceived. The first tick is still amazing.
Yeah, it's very nice to find. Ryder now have the, well, they had the win condition before, hold point A, but that's a very hard win condition to actually find. This is a little bit easier. Usagi swapping off, going to go with the Reaper. This is going to apply pressure to set 3. Playing on the Winston, and with Ace swapping to the Diva as well, there's even less shields in the way to stop Soggy.
Look at this, they pop the Primal, they're pushing forward, and they're looking to force you into a corner. Poor Soul, this Sigma just wanting to play the game, now trapped in, and the rest of Ryder can't really go in to peel or help at all. It's just the name of this unit and how things work. Though, small little stagger as they manage to find out the baby, and that Lucio should theoretically be able to escape. Siena, they do have a high noon nano. Those are big ultimates, especially to defend as his full dive composition.
Well, I gotta say, the adjustments from Ryder, I think, have been good, though, of course, Siena still holding pretty strong, and now with the nano boost online, that could go towards set 3. Definitely does beg the question, will Ryder be able to overcome? They have the ults to do it. See if they can make it happen.
Not a full rotation, so it's not going to help. The ults are being fought on top of the high ground, but eventually they do decide to fight on point, stop any tick from happening. That window is incredibly close, but the sound barrier means they can get incredibly closer, as the Diva, being the last true hero, throws out the bomb and is hoping for some change. It really only just does damage to the shield. It's up to the high noon on top of the high ground to help finish Ryder University. They get to the halfway point, but the Baptiste and the Baby Diva are the only people left. If there's anything that you can't call that, it's not a 2CP moment. Rather, it's Ryder University not being able to bring it out in the end, managing to only capture 51.4% of that point.
Yeah, now there is a win condition. Ryder just need to hang on and hold point 1, or, less than 51.4% of point 2. They are able to bring their lead right back into fruition. That said, Siena has something to say. They're going to be looking to attack now as Ryder moves towards the defense. I'm interested. Ryder is going to choose here for their composition. The reason I say that is because Siena very, very much going for the unusual type of composition. One that made a lot of sense, by the way, but definitely not the norm. For Ryder, we're seeing an interesting combo. Pharah and Junkrat is not that common, and, well, I guess we were just a little bit baited. Soggy's back to the Ashe, and that makes a little bit more sense, considering the fact that this is a good Pharah map or Echo for that matter, for the offense. So, as we get down to it, CJ Paul back for more on this junk. This guy is a Junkrat specialist.
Listen, I've seen teams run out on like pure double shield with a Pharah Junkrat, and their entire point of the game is to be a menace to society, just putting in that damage. And so I'm not too surprised to almost see it come out. But now, Ryder, they're going to be able to play a way of this game. They do have the Ashe to be able to pump in that damage. Immortality just barely saves out Grizzly. But Siena still have at least really good damage when it comes into the close range. Don't know how much Grizzly wants to let it happen, so they allow their opponents to start walking in. Siena starting to regret it as their shield breaks, and they have to play inside the small cubby, open up to Keys and their own Reinhardt from falling through. They are going to be able to learn from this, but my question goes is, how did the Cassidy get there?
Well, that's a good question. I don't quite know the answer. Very carefully, I'm going to go with. Either way, Siena had some good ideas there, but it's ultimately Key's positioning that really helped out to do so much damage. Ryder holding strong for now. About a minute or so ticked away, or I should say 3 minutes left on the clock for Siena to go forward. And they're starting to come up on some of these big ultimates on both squads, that being one of them, this Ant Matrix. Gonna stall things out for a few more additional seconds.
Hey, that's all you need in the end. Or that dynamite is going to do wonders for that Bob percentage. Love seeing a 7v6. But look at that. We do see the shield being held up against the window. It's not going to be lasting too long. And, well, Riders aren't really in the best position to start contesting as Grizzly looks to take this shatter, manages to land on two, helping to take out that mech. This may be good in the long run, but they have the Bob to be able to touch. Remech kill on two! How does that happen? Unfortunately, you are going to be paying attention to Captain Kill, who is just there inside your back line. Although the D.Va should be able to win this fight out, I would hope. Yes, they do. Siena still can come back and touch. That's the bright side.
That is indeed. But there's no potential, or there's no, I should say, take on this point just yet. Everybody's still looking good, and Riders still have ults to work with. But TJ, here we go. He has a Riptire of his own.
It's an interesting sound barrier to just help them engage in, but they don't really get too much room to walk in. It does focus out, and look at that. Keys is going to have a chance to use an ultimate of their own. They throw the Bob. That's going to be the one contesting the point as Captain Kill walks into their house, says hi, and then goes because they don't manage to live. But these trades are still very equal. Unfortunately, though, Ryder don't have anybody who can touch that point, as Seth on the ball is able to commit and disengage as they wish. So those 3 ticks eventually are going to be sealed no matter what.
Yes, they are, but a relatively decent hold. When you think about it, I mean, Ryder, they held for a while. A little bit less than a little bit more than a minute left on the clock when it came through. And this Siena adjustment really was interesting, going for the ball, you know, playing for the disruption, and I think it was effective over there on point 1, but I really think it's going to struggle on point B. We see utilizing the mines just to be sure and get some presence on the point.
It's placed on the point. However, there is a contest from the D.Va. We do see as the bomb goes out, he wants to use the Riptire to try to put this back into their favor, but has to play this incredibly carefully. Unfortunately, it is going to be punished, and Siena are able to start pushing forward. They pop out the window, though that bomb from Ryder is able to help. Not another Remech kill, as that's basically going to help solidify their chances to hold this point for another fight.
Oh my goodness, the Remech kills so clutch right now, and as ridiculous as those Remech kills can be, they are definitely deadly. Seth3 got to swap. I mean, this was a must swap at this point. You gotta imagine Keys as well swapping over for the Ryder side as well to the Soldier. So back to the norm, the usual. Siena, they're starting to potentially run out of tools here late on. They might have to go for some sort of eco pushes if they want to win this in the end.
Oh no! Grizzly got booped off the side by the charge! So the rest of Ryder have to just walk onto the point, give up that high ground. You desperately need that. I mean, look at Captain Kill with the high noon. That's something beautiful that very few people are going to be able to pop out. However, they really don't want to poke in just yet. They are being kind of tickled out by Keys on the low ground, while the D.Va Ranger trying to play on top of the bridge. They just disengage. It seems Siena are kind of more benefiting off of this slowness. You can't walk on them, nor can you dive on top of them. So the question is, what do you do here when they have the ults?
Well, I mean, Siena also, the more time they take, the more ults they build. Same thing for Ryder, but, you know, Siena gets to choose when to engage, and so that it does give them a bit of an advantage in that sense. And now with a whole bunch of those ultimates, they can choose to engage.
Look at that. All the ultimates are invested. That Bob was personal more than anything, going after Captain Kill. And it seems that Ryder are getting the better end of this as they survive and thrive. Picking off that mech ace is going to be able to just barely escape. But Siena, they only invested, well, relatively 3. And it seemed that Ryder really didn't want them to have a chance.
No, not at all. I can't believe how that Bob got upstairs That said, Siena, about a minute left to make this work. Need to just get above that 51.4% mark, so it's not as if it is all the way. And now that is a good bit of ultimate prep for Siena. They're going to have the Earth Shatter. That could be large, as well as the Tire. So, eyes peeled as we get underway what could be the final fight.
Siena still have the Riptire as a really big engagement tool. Even if they want to ignore that window for a little bit of time, look at this. They just get set to pop it. It's a little too early, though. It gets the mech, which is not bad, but the rally is still built, and the Rider University are basically in control of this.
What?
Until the Shatter lands and manages to go through. The Brigida's still up for a little bit longer, going to be giving that armor, but you have to keep touching that point, even if you have the advantage. You got to get that first tick and let it go out. That Brig is still moving around. Unfortunately, it is going to be the end. It was just enough. The respawn's not in Rider University's favor as Siena managed to clutch it out, and they'll take Hanamura.
Yeah, Siena making so many good decisions, especially late on that game. I do think that they were just trying to play for a late ultimate advantage, and that's ultimately what they had. They were able to pull it back. This was a nice play of the game, though. You got to give credit there. Captain Kill doing work on the Cassidy and pulling things back. So 2-1. Now the score. Siena up for the first time. And we are going to eventually be headed over to the Escorts game mode as well, which should be exciting. But, you know, let's talk a little bit more about Hanamura before we get there. I do think that individually, everybody kind of showed up. Right, you know, there was nobody that sort of fell behind in any way there for Siena, and I think that really is what it has to do with. Also, the Reinhardt play there at the end. I mean, set 3 was very much kind of jumping around, was playing with the Winston for just a little bit, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, when they got back onto the Reinhardt, that final Earth Shatter, I mean, talk about just a very small margin for error.
You basically had to land it, and though we say that a lot, well, actually we don't say it enough, I feel. It absolutely saved them what could have been a loss, and now we're at match point, so you got to be feeling that confidence, you know, that adrenaline's going to be pumping through. However, that was incredibly close on both sides, and honestly, a little too close for comfort on both of them. I think you really just want to feel like you're dominating against your opponent, but when everything is so close, what makes the difference in the long term? Especially when our next map is going to be Escort. It's going to be the first one of tonight.
Yeah, I think that I want to maybe conversate about the DPS here, because I do think that, at least in the last 2 maps, we've seen Captain Kill and CJ Paul kind of have the slight advantage. I don't know if you would agree or disagree, but to me, it feels like that has been a big difference maker. Whereas we were seeing, you know, Ryder maybe right there or thereabouts on Lijiang Tower, Siena really have stepped up their DPS game.
I would definitely say mixed feelings. Nonetheless, I do think I want to give you like a lot of it, you know, with the DPS and things like that. But I have to sit here and see how it's going to work. We're going to have some opportunities at least to kind of pinpoint that, and we'll definitely kind of say how that's going to work. But look at this. We are going to be seeing Siena swap in a player. So that kind of changes things up, especially with the possible escorts. I mean, Havana, Rialto, Route 66. Each one entirely different, at least the way I see it. How about you?
Well, yes and no. The reason I say yes and no, I actually think that it would make sense to bring in a if you have like a DPS player that is strictly a hit scan, you know, god. This is where you probably want to pull that out. If I'm, you know, I mean, go to Route 66, go to Rialto, go to Havana. All of those are great for hit scans as a whole, and it will be Rialto again. Great for the hit scan. So I don't know what that sub is, but I definitely can get. And to be fair, we've seen a lot of really good hit scan work coming through from the Siena side of things. So I don't want to pretend like they've been playing a bad hit scan, but I think that could be a good possibility. The other thing to think about, though, is just in general, way longer ranges here than we have seen thus far.
You're absolutely right. Rialto of the map is somewhat of a a nice hug. I'd like to say I've never seen these fights be taken at very long angles, but this is not where we get to go and what you're talking about when it comes down to sight. There's so many long angles, especially on first point. We're gonna have an opportunity. I mean, this map is known for its full holds.
That's very true. Yeah, Rialto definitely is very difficult to overcome that first checkpoint from an offensive perspective. Particularly though, what can be effective is Pharah. We've seen a lot of Pharah play already. I wonder if we're going to see any more as we move into what could be the final map of this quarterfinal. Remember, I mean, Siena, they might have started out a little slow, but they have rolled 2 maps in a row. And I say rolled, maybe that's not the right word, but they definitely have felt quite dominant when it comes down to it. I mean, thinking back to King's Row, very much so. Taking such a large amount of time, capping with such a large amount of time there on the 3rd point.
Yeah, it's going to be not hard, but rather intense, especially seeing on how they really want to bring in their mindset. They've had a good time just to breathe in, especially get those swaps and make sure that everything's working out. So at least composition-wise, what do you think is going to be the main expectation for both of these teams to win that? I think they're both at least similar to a good sense, but also entirely split at times.
I'll be with you. I think that if there's any place where we see a possibility of double shield, this really could be it. I don't know that that's going to be the case. I do think that there's a lot of variation, especially in collegiate. You don't always see whatever is quote unquote meta, happening in collegiate games. So I do think there's basically everything on the table. That said, like I said, possibility for double shield, probably the strongest here that it's been all day long for the 2 of us. That said, I think the DPS picks are going to be the crucial ones. Like I was talking about, the ability for Hanzo or Widowmaker to have high impact on this map is very, very big. Also, long range, that Pharah, use the Mercy with it. I mean, you're talking about a very difficult sight line to contend with if you are playing, for example, Ryan Zarya.
And especially kind of switching up on attack and defense, that it's entirely split. So I think we'll mostly see what you were talking about on defense, but when it comes to attack, I wouldn't be too surprised if we just see very fast compositions. The monkey is still highly viable on it, and we even got to see a tiny bit of Wrecking Ball. But what is the likelihood of seeing that Wrecking Ball? I don't feel these teams are as confident on it, besides from just the stall.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Wrecking Ball was a little bit of an interesting last moment swap that we did see come through, but I don't think that, I don't know. It's hard to say. We're going to see in just a moment, so I'll stop speculating, and I will just take a look at what we've got going on. And, well, you talked about the monkey, and we see 2 of them. Sethri, Grizzly, both going for the Winston, but we are seeing maybe a bit of a different idea on what that secondary pick should be, and that is that we're seeing the double bubble comp there. Ace going for the Zarya. That could change, obviously, but Ranger going for the Diva, and they've left Spawn with it, so I believe we're going to be sticking with that. One thing I'm not so thrilled to see is Soggy going back to the Genji. I'm not a huge fan.
I gotta say, as much as I like the flashy plays, I do somewhat have to agree. They have the nanos, so their main idea most likely is going to be onto that nano blade, but I've always been the type of person to say that if you can't hit them on normally, then don't ever try with nano blade, because there's a good reason. Look at this monkey, already taking up so much damage, and that was just a soft poke, though the anti manages to land. They are going to be taking their time, finding Ranger out now with no DM. This is for reason to take that engagement in, trying to take out that Mercy. Well, no, actually the monkey first, who just was a little bit too close in. Now they start to push forward. Look at that, the Doomfist landing on top of their head, but is going to safely get out of there. They still have a fight to get back, however, it may not be one that they're too happy to take, at least for the side of Ryder.
Yeah, Nourishment was the one to make this all possible. That anti-nade was fantastic. They were able to take advantage of it, and now the re-engagement coming through. Seth3, because of that, has already farmed the Primal.
Not even just the Primal, but the Visor, which helps solidify that damage. And with all of them down in one tunnel, not only does the Primal manage to get the kills, but so does the Visor. As much as Grizzly wants to melt down that time, they're going to have to go into this with a little bit over 4 minutes. I'd say 5, but by the time they fight, it's going to be less.
Soggy and Keys beaten brutally to their ultimates there pretty much by both of or all of this squad for the side of Siena. But with that being said, Ryder going to have to try and re-engage. They've swapped some stuff up. They're using Keys to maybe apply some additional pressure to Seth3, and of course same for CJ, who's gone to the Echo. Soggy trying to put down some damage in the skies.
Look at this, we see it as they immediately fight, they throw the nano into, oh, not the disengagement jump, because they were low. Now that nano, by the time it's ready to be used, it's melted down, so Seth3 is showing you how it's done, taking that engagement, then popping out a Visor. They continue to move forward, however, they lose out a good portion of their side. You see the juggle, it's not going to be able to confirm the kill, mostly just trying to help out. However, Siena just stay stacked, stay as a unit, and they are going to be able to capture this second point.
Yeah, and Siena, whilst they've lost some players here and there, they just haven't been wiped. And, well, I mean, that self-destruct not going to do it either. This seems like desperation, and it certainly is. Everyone just kind of rolling in for Ryder, trying to find something out of nothing. But the problem is, this is really only just allowing for free ult charge to come through for Siena. And, I mean, I could argue that CJ probably didn't need to use the duplication there, but added insult to injury, to say the least. Now, Siena have everything they really need to win out, to push all the way forward. They have the ult advantage. Ranger swapping to the Zarya now to go for the double bubble themselves, but it's just so late. I wonder if it's too late.
They do manage to take out life, so that definitely feels that they're still having some inside themselves. However, look at this. The Visor's now open. They eventually... No, yes, they managed to take it out. And look at this. They're trapping the side of Siena. They don't know where to go as Keys manages to finish off the Zarya. That's a good way to stabilize.
Soggy enabled right there by Nifty Bean, and that was, I think, a little bit fortunate that realistically Siena didn't really realize what was going on. Now with a couple of DPS ultimates, there's a big opportunity for Ryder to take advantage of this, and Soggy ready and waiting here in the back line.
We see them moving out. The High Noon from behind isn't able to fully charge. Poor Soggy was ready for the play of the game. However, it is going to be looking up to Grizzly, who has this Primal as a backup security movement. Manages to get a nice juggle, take out life, then go back into the fight, but has to disengage. Can't stay there for too long. That's up for your DPS to find. And Siena, they still have the 3 good ultimates to use, but how much is this time really going to be benefiting them rather than losing in bank?
Well, I do think Ryder have done a really good job of staggering their ultimates into a couple different fights. Not only did they not use everything there, but they also have the Valkyrie, and they have Keys to potentially win out. And oh no, that was scary. Seth3 fortunately surviving. This is now going to be all on to whether or not Ace can do something big.
Yeah, but look at this. Keys is looking for the flank. They don't even know. But you peek out a little too early. It still manages to find a 3. And help before anything could have became too bad. They invested the nano, but the grab is still open. Riders continue to change the speed of how they play, and it impresses me.
Well, and now they did do well enough there to farm up some more ultimates. They have a good potential combo with Ranger picking up the Graviton Surge and the Deadeye on the back of Soggy. So this is, like you said, pace. It's going to be all about who can engage first and engage fast.
They're already looking to engage fast. We see the High Noons go. Is that an over-eager High Noon I see, Soggy? As you get punished by an Ana 2 feet away who lands a sleep dart? I don't really think that was the brightest idea that I've seen all day, but hey, they still have the nano for the re-engage.
it certainly was ambitious, and Nourishment, who's had a fantastic game thus far, is not going to be missing that close range. Here's final fight potential, 2 minutes on the clock, and Grizzly going primal.
Look at this, just helping the team to clean this up. The Visor may find out the Reaper, but Siena don't really have the team to go in. They're an entire unit rather than just one player who can just kind of bring it back. So that payload's going to stop just barely at third point.
That was a weird disengage from Siena. They engaged and then instantly disengaged. Not quite sure what's going on, but now Ryder have all the tools that they need to win this out, to hold this point. Point 3, of course, infinitely more difficult to to push through if you're Siena.
We see the Nano go through as they take a massive jump. However, they're not able to fully commit into the back. They're mostly just trying to take out Grizzly. However, the anti does land on Ranger, so a little bit of hit or miss. CJ, not you too, as you go to the side and immediately get killed as you tried to use the high noon. This fight very much is staying into the poke, but Keys is going to fall. Luckily, you stopped Seth from hard committing into you, but you melt him down eventually. It's still even trades relatively as Keys gets res. But look at that, right? University's DPS make sure that it will always stay in their advantage.
Yeah, Grizzly pretty much gives their life away there in order to make sure to find Sethri. It is a trade that's worthwhile because of the spawn advantage, and now Sethri swapping to the Roadhog. This is full desperation engaged. CJ goes to the Cassidy as well. This is not ideal.
It's not. They do have the grab, but they just have to worry about the D.Va. The high noon forces them into a uncomfortable spot, and look at that. The poor support lighter opened up to it. They're just going to start walking and pop out the Blossom, and it's practically a team kill with the Nano added on top of it. 14 seconds left, and you don't have much room to touch.
No, the old Beyblade combination coming to fruition, and well, I don't even know if it's going to be a touch with the stun and the kill going out on towards set 3, the ball no more. It's going to be the round over. Ryder doing their best to stop Siena's roll through Rialto. That being said, Siena, I mean, talk about a tale of two halves, right? They just dominate off the back of, really, I gotta say, the Ana play as well as the Winston play. Those were the two big things to watch out for. I mean, you gotta add Ace into that conversation because of the double bubble, but in general, it was Nourishment making some huge plays on the Ana, using that biotic grenade to great effect until Ryder finally figure out, they swap basically every part of their composition, and they finally figure out a way to stop them, and they stop them for ages. 5 whole minutes, in fact, stopped by Ryder there on point 3.
Now, you know, Ryder feel like an entirely different... I don't know. At first, they just slowly got snowballed, and then once they got to third point, everything just started clicking in their head. Their engagements, what ultimates they really wanted to invest. And Siena, they're not running out with a shield at all. And, you know, I think maybe I'm harboring too much on it, but how does this composition work on a map like this in a tense motion like now?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't know that this composition really makes logical sense. I guess the idea would be that set 3 is going to try and, well, I was going to say maybe use the bridge, but they're not pushed up, so Siena is in a bit of a weird spot here with this.
Look at this. Now they are getting that poke in. Ryder just have the free time to push up that payload and then take that hard engagement. Unfortunately, they lose Ryder out in the middle of it. That anti lands beautifully, helping to solidify that the Roadhog dies, but Grizzly has to get traded in that meantime, which isn't going to be the brightest thing, simply because Nifty Beans cannot res it. So they have to play carefully. They have to figure out what their next engagement is, especially since CJ Paul is playing a little sneakily.
Yeah, I mean, that their win condition is set 3 hitting hooks. So, I mean, that's what happened. They hit a hook, but now set 3 on the way back, and Siena really just have to continue backing until the Roadhog returns. Now that that's happened, now they can sit down and try and re-engage.
We just see Siena taking as long of angles as possible. Look at that, they pop out the visor in a free situation, and then when the Reaper tries to contest, you just turn around, they kill. My goodness, that was such a good kill onto the Cassidy before the High Noon could pop out, and the Reaper may take high ground, but the rest of the team can't really help out with it.
Yeah, a great position to pull off the attack visor from Captain Kill, and that's the sort of plays they've been making all game long. And I will say, CJ, the Junkrat isn't always the greatest of picks here on Rialto, but this particular angle that Ryder have to walk through is very effective for Junkrat. You can see the bombs just coming in time after time.
They pop the nano and that anti-lance. The poor mech's not going to be able to save them. So the gravitic flux, no, the graviton surge, more of it, is absolutely free. And now they're just able to do what they do best. Pump that damage. And Ryder, they are going to be having a contest. Now you got to see, how does that composition work on second point? First one, it looked pretty nice, but second is an entirely different stage of the game.
I would disagree. I think that the composition for Siena, it has a timer on it every time. Whenever Ranger, picks up a Graviton Surge or there's another ult combination that's a win condition, there's just not a lot that can be done other than interrupt it, which is just not super consistent. So Siena, they're really betting on themselves if they are going to stop this push. That being said, they have blanked a ton of ultimates, Siena, to work with right here, right now. The more space they give, the more time is on that clock.
Oh, not able to stun to save your ally. Unfortunate, but look at that. You're managing to get the picks in that meantime. The bomb gets thrown, and no, not the remake. That's a really good point to help turn the fight around. Though the Zarya is still alive, helping the damage when the monkey eventually wakes up. The rest of Siena are going to be walking back in with a whole hog, just basically saying, excuse me, coming through. What's going on, guys? Why is there somebody on my payload? And, well, they're going to be able to win that out.
Yeah, eventually with the recontest, it is a win here for Siena. That said before, I feel like these wins have a clock on them. And, well, this time it's going to be the Ranger clock. Graviton Surge ready to go once more. And, of course, we've seen the potential for the biotic grenades and how effective they can be. It's going to be on to Siena to try and counter out the Blossom with this Surge.
Look at this. The grab does get thrown, but the Blossom placed afterwards. They took their time. They waited, and now it pays off to help push that payload to the edge. And now, second point has been captured. I've never seen such good hesitance when it comes to using an ultimate.
Like I said, win condition, press the Q button, Ryder win. That's how this has worked, and it's how it's going to continue working if Siena don't really have any tools to stop it. You think about the immortality field, right? That's absolutely there, but the timing's not been so fantastic for Life, and, well, beyond that, you just have to kill them before they kill you. And, well, Captain Kill, CJ, they've all kind of been sitting on these ults a little bit, and this is a good adjustment. Sethric going to the Reinhardt. This is the place to do it if you're going to go for the Reinhardt, and he's gone there.
Look at this. Now they move in. Oh, that's not going to be feeling too good as Keys manages to down the Riptire and the Junkrat during it. And Immortality, while there, the payload's in a really good spot, especially with that window now popped. However, the High Noon managing to go through. Visor is placed onto the left side, but a little bit too far, and without the help to confirm any of the kills. Now Siena are in a very dangerous spot. This is going to be a big staggered moment. The anti does give them a bit more room to breathe, but they aren't really getting the picks that they desperately need. Ranger's at high charge. This Zarya is doing absolute work. Throws down the grab, stopping 3 people from touching the point, and then, well, stopping the Wrecking Ball as well. As Ryder University, they're going to be able to bring this to a map 5 for the last chance of a victory.
Absolutely. Well done. And, well, I mean, I don't want to say it's really that Siena didn't play well. They just kind of outplayed themselves in that second half. From the beginning, they were on a bit of a weird composition, and whilst I think that there was at least some logic to it on point 1 with the Junkrat applying the pressure, yes, you were really had to be focused on hitting the hook if you were going to win with the comp. That was fine when the hooks were working. Unfortunately, that only worked for 1 or 2 fights, and once the ultimates came online, there was just too much to handle, too many ultimates to deal with, and the win conditions were simply in place for Ryder. They basically rode that all the way to the end and picked up the victory.
Yeah, but now it's gonna be stressful going back over to that control. We saw how it ended before, and while that one necessarily wasn't as close as it was throughout the rest of the maps, both teams have now built up their experience and how they want to work. So before we kind of talk about what's going to happen, let's look at these highlights, because my goodness, these plays were well deserved.
Yeah, and I want to, as we go through, I want to talk these ultimate combos, right? Because that was what was so good coming through here. We saw so much effective usage from Nourishment on the Ana as well. She did a fantastic job, but once the swap happened, once we went back over to once Siena went back over to the offense, or for the defense, it just kind of fell apart. And this was very good. He's doing a lot of work on the Reaper in general, and once that Reaper swap came through, I think, to be fair, Set3's life became a lot more difficult in general, and the Death Blossoms on point every single time.
Reaper themselves as a character is not always going to help take out that monkey, but it's just the fact that the team was so unified, especially when it came down to helping keys melt any type of target. Rangers' charge up time must have been massive. They're just being able to bubble and then save the team, be able to build off that. It's how they brung it back, and now they get to sit there confidently and think to themselves, well, what do we want to go on to next? Because we're going back to control, and you know, we have to keep our momentum up.
Yeah, well, I again, right before we kind of think about control, I do want to point out that for the push there for Ryder, they won 3 fights, and they had 3 grabs. That was all the fights they won.
Oh.
They won the fights where they had the grab, and the rest was really just kind of either back and forth. It was picks both sides. There wasn't very clean engagements from Siena, and so the clean wins where they got point 1, then they got point 2, and then eventually got to that golden box of victory, all were off the back of 3 to 5 man graviton surges. So using the win conditions effectively is exactly what Ryder were able to do. And now as we move into the final map, the final control, it's going to be Nepal. I do think that if Ryder can really focus on utilizing that same strategy, they can pull this off.
Nepal, the starter of many careers to end. As that phrase doesn't make much sense, but we're just gonna move on from it. Look at this, we're starting out on by far one of my favorite points, and with these compositions, definitely feel they're gonna be interesting setups with such long range and rotation opportunities. How do these compositions look to you?
Well, I think the ball makes a lot of sense if you're Siena, utilizing that in order to potentially get, you know, all kinds of different kills. Utilizing the pit over there makes sense. It's also great disruption. That said, Grizzly's kind of on the right pick to counteract this with the hook.
It already pushes forward, you know, life, ace, you know, they're not going to be living for too long, and as much as you want to be able to back up and use that melee to protect yourself, the point just opened up, and you have very little to no one to be able to contest it. So as we see the rest of Siena back up, you gotta ask themselves, what do we do in this fight?
Yeah, and I think the ball is interesting on its own, but it's not very synergistic for the rest of the squad. Everybody else is wanting to use this May wall to get forward, and, well, maybe they can make it work.
Well, it might, but look at this. Captain Kill builds up that visor and starts pumping in the damage. It's what they needed. However, it's not really doing too much, rather than a tiny bit of chip towards Ranger's shield. Even when they used the Shatter, weren't even protecting. It's just not enough. Ryder, they're working as a unit, and that's what's looking best, while Siena, they're being caught out individually.
Yeah, that's well said, because, like I said, we're not looking at a very synergistic situation. It's very much that individual. Though I did like Captain Kill's positioning. That a bit better. He's going to fall down, and now here's where Seth3 can shine. Fortunately, he's got to do a little bit more.
With that, placing the mines directly on the point. Walk into the field, they say. Walk in as your point and your pain are going to be taken away. Now you don't really have too much to considerably contest, especially because Twitch falls off the map. Soggy is able to find a nice trade, but they still decide to reset.
Yeah, that reset is the right decision, and you can see that Ryder have a pretty good ult pink of their own. That being said, it's very, very close. Siena and Ryder, I mean, this next fight is about to be a bit of a back and forth. The key, though, for Siena, they have the big defensive ult. They have nourishment with the sound barrier, and that should be able to turn the tide in their favor.
They still, though, push in. The window eventually comes in. But look at that. They melt down Soggy before the visor can even be used. Now they're fighting inside the smart room. Hog can't even land the hook. Unfortunate of the hitbox as Siena start to melt, start to stagger. And now they're getting the ultimates.
Yeah, like I said, nourishment, utilizing the sound barrier right there. That was the key. That was what put Siena over the edge. And now it's going to be a bit of a back and forth battle here, with Ryder coming in with the advantage, at least ultimate wise, is a slight advantage. Grizzly, though, I mean, that whole hog can really apply so much pressure on this small point.
They do pump out. Look at that, the Blizzard stopping who are on the fight. The Riptire goes through, breaking down the immortality. Ranger eventually going to fall, but look at this. The poor soul gets booped off the map before even getting able to use the hog. As Siena push forward, take control.
Yeah, that's a little bit brutal. Ryder needed to win that. They invested heavily, and they lost. Grizzly not able to use the whole hog is a big deal. They probably should have led with that, but instead now they have to use it as a last resort, a last chance. Ryder now going to be coming in here, and they've contested.
Look at this, they slam down onto the back line, and the mines doing their job. Ryder now down 3, and the MAAC, everyone is prone to Seth3's own field. It seems that Siena, they are going to reverse that momentum, putting it in their favor, and now they are one map to a victory.
Yeah, and we talked about the ball, right? We talked about that Hammond. Well, once the Hammond was on the point and could sort of play around the rest of the team, it became infinitely more effective at the at denying space, at finding boops, I mean, the minefield, obviously a big deal. Everything kind of came together there at the end, and Siena able to pull it off. Now just potentially one round away from victory here in the series. We've seen some adjustments here. It's back to double bubble here. Ryder wanting to go back to what was at least somewhat successful for them. Siena, on the other hand, going to teleport out. Are they going to keep, are both teams going to keep the Symmetra? That's the question. CJ, nope, swapping back over. Going to go back to the tried and true.
It's not too much to worry about already. Look, as the damage is stopping Ryder from really walking in. They're low on resources, and that's understandable, as Ranger and Grizzly themselves, look at their health bars. Mixed up, and Keys is just not able to stay alive. Siena now taking their angles, going for that poke. The point is open, so we do see them looking to walk forward. However, with Twitch gone, they don't have the consistent healing. Ryder University no longer have a way for this engagement. Look, as the bubble is just used solely to stop the damage, and they just fully disengage. They just say, nope, I'm out of here.
Yeah, whenever you're in a position where you're playing the Symmetra and you don't get the point, it's really, really difficult to win the fight overall. CJ Paul doing so much work with the Junkrat to apply the pressure. Now with the ultimates coming online for both teams, Ranger is going to have to be the key if Ryder want to pull this off. That Graviton Surge is big.
Look at this. They pop the visor and they steamroll through the nano use, but I don't know how much you really wanted to do it when a window is right there, especially that primal. You're juggling around and the point isn't in your favor, so as you disengage, I wonder what the thought process was behind that.
I think that Ryder really weren't ready for Ranger to throw that Graviton Surge in there, and you can see Ranger now swapping off of the Zarya, going to the Reinhardt to try and just have a little bit more shield presence in position. Is it going to be enough? I'm not so sure. The Valkyrie to keep those healthy for now, but the Tire over the top.
It does get broken. Oh no, the Shatter! They're trying to charge and try to pull something sneaky under Siena, but they are ready to do anything to bring the victory. Though that anti does cost the life of their Reinhardt, it's not going to be helping out for too long. Siena, they push this down to 1-fight territory now.
Yeah, and with that, the other bad news, I think, for Ryder, they've been swapping so often, they really don't have anything to work with other than this Deadeye, and that is a huge problem. I talked about Nourishment, has another sound barrier ready to go, should be the win condition for Siena.
Now they push in onto the point. The High Noon is set with the sound barrier, saving them for a little longer as the Visor manages to take out the Hunter. The Bomb takes out the Monkey, and then Sentry takes out their own counterpart. They move in as Ryder don't have the units, and in the end, when it mattered the most, Ryder University going to fall a tiny bit short as Siena managed to bring out every last percent they needed, and they are going to win this series in a map 5.
Big victory in for Siena College, and you're right, 5 maps is what it took, but Batiste played the game as well. Let's see what happened here. Always interested. Oh, I love it. What a shutdown.
It's not all often that we get the Baptiste play the game, but when they are, you always get to see their POV, and sometimes the team gets to laugh saying, well, what were you even looking at? And, that's for the support player to know, not for you. But an amazing series fighting for the edge. It literally went back and forth every other map. These teams finding the edge at any point they could.
No doubt. I do think that I gotta, we just got done talking about life on the support. Nourishment did a fantastic job, regardless. Especially the last 3 maps of this series, I felt like she was really, really impactful on that support role. But in general, I think if we talk about an individual that really pushed Siena over the edge, we have to say CJ Paul, right?
I would definitely say yes. It's just the amount of work they did from map 1 led over to here, and I definitely feel that it was by far the strongest point that helped them have the edge in some fights.
I would agree. Yeah, I mean, right there with you. And, well, Ryder, though they showed showed some great passion, showed that they could fight with Siena. Ultimately, Siena taking this quarterfinal matchup. We got one more matchup just around the corner, though, and that is Quinnipiac going up against Canisius. That said, we're going to take a little bit of a break to figure out all the teams and get them in the server, so we'll be back in just a little bit.